All right. Hello, everyone. Glad that you were able to make it. I hope that you truly enjoyed the. I hope you truly enjoyed. Sorry, I hope you truly enjoyed the festival. If you've been able to participate, and also participate in the past events, and also most recently the screening of Birth of a Movement that we are truly excited to be discussing for the next about half an hour or so. So I thank you again for coming. Once again, my name is Corrigan Revels, and I am the founder and director of the Arkansas Minority Film and Arts Association. And this event is concluding our inaugural AMFAA Film Festival. So sit back. If you have any questions, please type it in and please share on your social medias and let's get this thing started.
All right, Corrigan, thank you so much for everything, really, including the honor of inviting me to moderate this panel, which I think is an important one and a fantastic one to close off this festival. Corrigan, of course, you'll be joining us for this panel as the founder of the festival, but we are also going to have, in addition to you, some fantastic guests. We have Kwami Abdul-Bey and Clarice Abdul-Bey, who are the co-directors of the Ouachita Foothills Youth Media Arts and Literacy Collective, and Tanisha Conway, supervising producer at Arkansas PBS. And of course, I'm Jeff Yang. I'm an author, a journalist, a cultural critic, and somebody who spent a lot of time talking about the need for representation on screen and the necessity for depictions that are authentically true to our histories, true to our present, true to our identities and our communities. And this film, which I had the pleasure of watching yesterday, tells that story more powerfully than virtually any other documentary I have seen, in part because I think for people who are not fully aware of Birth of a Nation and of D.W. Griffith and of the role this film really played in shaping Hollywood and shaping the industry itself, it was eye-opening. It was a little earth-shattering to me. So I want to begin there and just ask each of you, when you first encountered this film, when you first watched it and saw this story rolling out, what did it mean to you? What was your reaction to it? Let's start with you, Corrigan, actually.
Man, so I actually took out the time to finally watch the entire Birth of a Nation film right before. Yeah, I did that to myself, right? And so, man, it really, at first in the beginning, I was kind of confused on, okay, like where is this going? Because I did not, look at the synopsis or anything like that. I just knew the effects that it has had on us, especially people of color, mainly, Black people in film for so long. And but I just came in blind and everything like that. But once it got past the Civil War, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing these type of privileges that historically I'm not used to going on, and I'm like, okay, like where's this going? And then just seeing the conclusion of it, it was just like, wow. Like as much as it seems like he claimed for it not to have an initiative behind it. It was very hard for me to believe that, and it definitely came off as just a recruitment tool and celebration of being part of the Klan.
I mean, it literally was based on a novel, a best-selling novel of the time called The Klansman, and I mean, just to sort of lay it out a little bit for those of you who don't know the full depth of it, I mean, this movie is considered, as it said in the documentary, to be kind of the founding feature film of Hollywood, right? It was the sort of like the cornerstone on which the entire industry was built. And certainly the way that depictions of Black people on screen, so many of the things that we now associate rightly with kind of the ingrained stereotypes that we still see on screen in Hollywood began with this film. And even more than that, this film has blackface. This film has racialized depictions of biracial identity associated with villainy and lust and rape. This film has every degrading and monstrous construct that now feeds into the screen violence, really, that occurs to Black people in Hollywood today. And yet, you can also see how big a gap, in some ways, there is in terms of a kind of progress, because this is a film where we are literally seeing things like lynchings on screen, and we are seeing a valorization of white supremacy and a validation of racism in a way that, in this moment especially, I mean, I don't want to say that this in any way minimizes the horrors we're facing today, but oh my God, looking back at that, it's truly something that's gut wrenching. And Corrigan, you're a better man than I. I don't know I could have subjected myself to it right in this moment. So I want to turn actually to Clarice and Kwami, because a lot of the work that you've done has been in helping people to, especially younger generation people, to find their own voice and to push back on this. And I wanted to ask the same question, what your visceral reaction was to seeing some of the images that from Birth of a Nation, and how you think that has shaped more broadly the industry that we're trying to continue to correct today.
I agree with Corrigan in that, you know, watching it, you wonder, not really wonder, because I'm pretty knowing what the movie was about. I was pretty sure that it was a movie to galvanize the Klan, and also to recruit other members into, or white citizens into the Klan. The one thing I think for me was that it was the birth of a lot of things. As a matter of fact, it was the birth of looking at films in a way that with the lynching and the blackface and all of the other symbols of racism that was put in the faces of American people, that it was also causing this level of desensitizing that happens when you show something and you continue to show it, and it puts it in your face, and it's almost like, okay, I can watch this. Like if somebody's being lynched on TV, then it allows you to then, if you see it again, then does it hit the same way? Is it something that you can constantly watch? And I think that's very strategic when we're talking about films and we're talking about pictures, is that there's this desensitization that happens whenever somebody puts something like that on a screen for you to watch and for people and children to look at. And so I was watching many things being birthed in that moment, with that film showing that much hatred to citizens and people who came to watch the film. And like they said, that it actually brought in more Klans members after the viewing. Not too long after that, they no longer hid their faces. They were marching on Washington, or marching on that mountain, Stone Mountain, with their hoods up, which had never happened before in public view. So it was definitely something to me that, yeah, that it was clear that was what was happening. And I think when we're working with our young people, part of what we do is we're having them to assess these situations, these movies, these issues, pictures, and then we want them to use a solutions-based type journalistic way of thinking about what could have been done, what else could Trotter have done to stop this? You know, what other thing or solutions could we have come up with So those are some things for me.
Well, one of the things that you say that's so poignant is it was the birth of so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to film school, I had the pleasure of having Spike Lee as one of my professors. And he talks about this film as being the birth of the Hollywood storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at every single epic film that's been made since then, they all follow this similar storyline of this white savior that comes in to save the white race from not so white people. And the historical the historical narrative that's behind this is that this film came out on the 50th anniversary of the start of the Civil War. It came out during the time in our history that was known as the promulgation of the Lost Cause, where all of these Confederate monuments were being erected all over the United States. So this film could be viewed at just like those Confederate monuments are.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that's an incredible series of great points you both shared there. I think, you know, one thing about the desensitization issue, right? It's something people are talking a lot about today because when we think about what Hollywood has done in terms of creating a heroic narrative around police officers, around policing, right? Even out of control rogue police, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, Lethal Weapon had how many sequels? We're in a world where the desensitization to the nature of what policing should be versus where it came from, what it is. It came from, you know, originally the first police forces were rounding up runaway slaves. You know, that was literally their job, and it has evolved now to a situation where police have become, you know, kind of renegade heroes in our minds because of how Hollywood has designed their narrative. Well, you know, here you have something even more literal at the very cornerstone of Hollywood again, where, you know, the white knights of the Klan are being celebrated, and it literally leads to a rebirth of the Klan. So to the point of desensitization, a term that's used in the film, and I want to ask you, Kwami, about it, is it's referred to as sort of like racist pornography, right? You know, as essentially having the same kind of beats and tropes and, you know, coaxing and teasing and sort of ultimate, you know, bringing to some sort of sense of, you know, closure that pornography does. And with the same kind of goal of getting people excited and stimulated and passionate and, you know, charged up about, I mean, it's a really powerful phrase. And you mentioned, you know, film school. Part of the reason it's so good at it is because unlike other people in those early days, D.W. Griffith was really good at what he did. He created a lot of the techniques that modern filmmakers still use today. So I'm kind of wondering, in film school, was Birth of a Nation taught to you uncritically? You know, it's still on many greatest films of all time lists, right?
Yes, it was taught uncritically by white professors, but when you get into Spike's class, he's like, you need to rethink this. And we were able to watch The Answer that he created, as well as Oscar Michaud's, I think it was The Gates, his answer to Birth of a Nation. I think it was something about the gates in the title. But then we're able to see that there's a lot of questions that previous professors did not address that we're able to look at now.
Tanisha, I want to turn to you. And you actually have kind of a unique pioneering role yourself. You're the first Black woman to be a producer at Arkansas PBS. I want to ask you a little bit more about, you know, what you know about the birth, as it were, of Birth of a Movement, and also to have you speak a little bit more about your own personal experience at PBS. You know, when you see a film like this and have the opportunity to kind of bring it forward, you know, what does it mean in terms of the mission that you see yourself bringing and PBS bringing in terms of uplifting a different frame of history?
Well, you know, I will say for me, I come from a very small town in Arkansas, a town that the school districts weren't integrated until 69 and 70, when most people think that, oh, everything happened in 57. After 57, every school was integrated, because that's a lot of times, all that we hear. I remember growing up, and, we only had 3 channels that we could get, where I lived. And one of the things that I watched, I was a lot of PBS. I will say that I'm a different kind of kid. I also was one that would watch 2020 every Friday night. So I've always loved, news and reading and that sort of thing. And it wasn't until I went to see the Glass Menagerie at OBU that I realized that there was something else out there. I knew I wanted to do something in with writing and with TV or radio and media and that sort of thing. But after leaving Stevens and going to college at, the U of A in Fayetteville, I was there when we first, we got faculty that had actually been in film to start, to start the school there and really get us moving. A-State and some of the other places were already really moving well in TV and film. But some of the things from this that I keep thinking is what we weren't taught. There were so many things that they conveniently got left out of. This is the way you write a story. This is the arc of it. This is what we're going to watch in this class. This is what we're not. And this was not one that was focused on. The Birth of a Nation is not something that was focused on when I was in college. And so it wasn't until well after that I, got a chance to see it. And I didn't watch the entire thing today, but I did watch parts of it. And I flipped over and watched The Birth of a Nation with Nate Parker. I watched some of it last night, and then coming into this. So I've had a full kind of, different kind of experience over the last 24 hours. But, coming to Arkansas PBS and AETN for so many years, I've been there a long time, 24 years, I believe. But I came in as an administrative assistant just to get my foot in the door. And one of the things that I learned over time is that you really do have to continue to bring your narrative forward.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, over time, it's like, well, we're going to market this way to this group of people. And it's like, no, that's not the way you market to that group of people. And if you take the time to really pay attention, to other groups or to people who don't necessarily look like you or come from the same places as you or the same backgrounds as you, you really have to constantly bring that forward. And all these years later, I'm constantly bringing that forward. And so watching the film, and even, I thank Corrigan and everybody for bringing this together, because, one of the things for me with watching it was that it connects so many dots.
Yes.
It connects the dots of A Birth of a Nation. It connects the dot of who was making the films at the time, which a lot of times when I'm working with interns or with my daughter, who is a creative, but when I'm working with them, some of the things I try to tell them is stop looking just right now. You just want to look right now, and we have to go back, and we have to look back and see what all was, was going on, what was there. And this did a beautiful job of connecting those dots, even bringing in the Oscar Michels. So many of them are like, who is that? Where, and it's like, you have to pay attention to those sorts of things. And so that's one of the things that, because it creates that bond and that feeling and that connection and takes it forward. And, that's a lot of what I continue to try to do today, what we have to do a lot of. And I will say, it's not a comfortable place to be a lot of times. And I think that's where, we want to get comfortable. We want to be comfortable. And recently, after everything started happening, this go around, the protests and the marches and, and everything that started happening, all of a sudden it was like, Tanisha, we need to do some shows. We need to get out here and do some shows. And I'm going, well, we should have been doing some shows, and so you get to a point, and then when you start making those shows, the conversations that you start having to have that haven't been forced on others, and the things all of a sudden that they say that make you go, oh,
yeah.
The conversations, yes.
All of a sudden, oh, you said that? Oh, well, I have to reel something in real quick before I say, what really, and so it really is a journey. And I really think this is a great part of that journey for bringing not only the youngsters forward, but even us forward in our work to try to, to enhance where we are and where we need to go and, where we need to move from here. So, that's some of that.
That's fantastic. And I mean, I can totally see them sort of like leaning over your desk or something and saying, so Tanisha, you got some shows for us? It's like as if you haven't been there for, decades already.
4 years.
Yeah. Anyway, but that is the situation we face right now. And you mentioned, of course, the protests that continue in the streets today and are sure to continue well through November and beyond. One of the things which I think this documentary did so well is to, I think, Clarice, to your point, underscore that this wasn't just about the birth of a film called Birth of a Nation or the birth of an industry. It was also the birth of, if you will, a media movement, right? A movement to course correct, right? Every hero breeds its villain, every villain breeds its hero. It's the very Batman Joker reality of our life. And in this case, Trotter, the hero of our story, was perhaps one of the first people to really organize people towards pushing back against the kind of false depictions that have framed our communities, our respective communities, in the decades since, and that fight continues. One of the things which I wanted to bring to you, Corrigan, is this sort of larger conversation around how we do more than just push back, right? Because what protests do, they hopefully pull back. They remove things that are odious. But we have to fill that space with other narratives. We have to actually find ways to not just leave a vacuum, but a narrative that is better and that is truer. And in the decision to actually form this festival, Corrigan, I wanted to get a little bit more of a sense for what motivated you and whether or not you see this as an opportunity, of course, to help fill that gap. So people should not be just watching Birth of a Nation, even though you paid that price for us. They need to be watching films like Birth of a Movement.
Right. And so the motivation behind the organization, I guess it was something that I totally did not expect. And I don't say it much because, I'm trying to provide this platform for everybody else. But I did go to film school at the local university here in Little Rock. And so I've been that young, Black, struggling filmmaker in the South, right? And so the difficulty for myself was that, okay, I'm putting in the work. I'm trying to go to festivals that I can afford, trying to network and find out who is from Arkansas that left, that never did come back, but maybe I can connect with them in some type of way. Like I've been doing all of that, and I've been, producing my own content as well. But for myself on the personal level, I get kind of let down when I'm introduced to, an undergraduate student or a high school student from someone else. It's like, hey, you should reach out to Corrigan and he's a filmmaker and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm a filmmaker. I claim that. But the issue is it took me a little while to get to where I'm at now. And I'm still growing and I'm still trying to find a mentor within the industry because it is a difference. But I could get you to where I am within a year. But the thing is, I want you to go further than that. And I know you want to go further than that. And, I realized, some organizations that seem to have pushed diversity, there were other goals that went into it, underlining goals that went along with it. And if they want to do that, that's fine. I'm not here to tell them not to go along with whatever they want to do. But at the same time, with me, at the time being a college and career coach for a high school, and I'm seeing my students, like one student I won't ever forget, he never did give me any issues. I could tell that he was kind of like, whatever kind of vibe. And that summer following, he got into some trouble that can literally stick with him for life and affect him. And I thought to myself, like, man, like, what if he had a camera in his hand? you know, or what if, you know, he liked to paint? What if he had some type of outlet to help him deal with whatever he's dealing with on a personal level, you know? And I know that there was an absence of that, and I knew that, you know, along when we talk about the power of media, that, you know, you have this as a, you know, being in a millennial, you know, age range, you know, you have all these things in the media that's coming at the millennials, this and that. And it's like, no, like, we're doing great things and we can do great things. And instead of pointing the finger at some or generalizing us, like, we're here to work and we want to collab, but it's that gap, you know, besides, you know, we're proof right here with Tanisha and Clarice and Mr. Kwami, like, they're all here and they will support, but it needs to be more of that. And so that's what led me literally to creating this organization, to develop a platform and hopefully bridge the gap between here in the industry, to at least receive mentorship, because I'm a strong believer in mentorship. And mentorship eliminates the negative stereotypes that the kids see on TV, right? Because they see it in person. It's like, oh, like, this is where I can be. Like, this is not, you know, what I'm seeing on this channel, that channel, or the roles that, you know, some Black actors and actresses, you know, had to take upon just to get into the industry. Like, you know, this isn't us. Because I tell them all the time, like, you know, when we depict a young white man that's sagging and we say that he's sagging because he's trying to be Black, that's a problem. That's not Black. You know, that was something that was created and is sadly a part of our culture, but that goes along with other things that's systemic, right? You know, and so initially, like, that's what started this. And I just, as I'm seeking to move forward, as I seek to grow in film, and as I seek to be responsible in the stories that I tell, you know, I want to be able to bring someone along with me. I don't want to wait till I'm 35 or 40 or wherever like that. Like, I want to start right now, because we truly don't know what the next day will bring. And so overall, like, that is what ignited this organization.
Man, you are like building the ladder a rung at a time, kind of, you know. It's amazing, because that idea that, you know, it's one thing to kind of reach out a hand and pull somebody up. It's another thing to literally build a ladder so that we all can climb together. That's the idea. And I want to actually connect that to what Kwami, you and Clarice are doing, because the notion that every generation, unfortunately, it seems like we have to rebuild that wheel unless we can actually help out the next one. That's something which really motivated what you guys are doing. I love the motto for, you know, or the response you kind of had when your 7th grade students sort of brought this thing forward to you. Don't hate the media, be the media.
Yeah.
It sort of speaks to what it is that we as creators have as both a burden and an opportunity, right? It's like, yes, we got to push back, but yes, we also got to tell different kinds of stories. Tell us a little bit, and as we, by the way, I just want to open the field for questions to anybody in the audience as well. Just please share them in comments. I'll keep on, you know, talking as we go, as things fly in. But if you have things you want to ask of any of the panelists, please do share them in the chat, and we'll bring it forward. Kwami, Clarice, can you tell us a little bit about the kind of the genesis of your project, the Ouachita Foothills Youth Media Arts and Literacy Collective, and what you've seen come out of it so far?
Well, the genesis actually is tied to HBO's Bangin' in Little Rock that came out in 1994, where at the time I was a 7th grade social studies teacher. And when that came out and it depicted the young people of Little Rock in such negative, stereotypical way, I just happened to know one of the young people that was in it, and I pulled him to the side, and I'm like, the person I saw on that HBO documentary is not the person that I know. So tell me what really happened. And then when he started telling me that, well, we thought we were acting, And, you know, so I immediately put that information out that, hey, this is not what it was purported to be. And that's when all the young people, we want to boycott HBO and stuff. Then I said, no, no, no. Don't hate the media, become the media. And that's when we created a radio show called Fat Lip Youth Talk Radio. And it has since blossomed into what we have now, where we've actually contracted with the city of Little Rock to actually run a low power radio station here in Arkansas as well. But the whole goal is to, let's not concentrate on doing anything that we're not going to get any fruitful benefits out of. Let's concentrate on honing our own crafts and putting out our own stories, just like Corrigan and Tanisha talked about. You know, we have to be our own storytellers, and that's what this whole thing is about. This birth of a movement, one thing that I really got out of it was the historical framework, and I want everyone who watched it to research the history, because this story is an amazing story that went on for 3 years. These protests went on for 3 years, and it wasn't just William Monroe Trotter. He was on each shoulder. He had Montrose Thornton and Alice McCain, who were his second-hand man and woman, which it ignited a national protest that went from city to city. There was even rioting in Philadelphia to try to get this movie off the screen. So connecting all of that, what's going on in the streets right now, because of the summer that we've had with the police brutality and misconduct being brought to the forefront. Yes, it is being brought to the forefront by what? People taking their own stories and taking their telephones and producing their own media. So all of this is interconnected, and we just need to figure out how to make it our story and how we can benefit from it, because most of the time the stories that are told, we don't get to benefit from.
Kwami, that is exactly where I wanted to go next. You know, this notion that we are now in a world where literally everybody is a media maker, right? I mean, you know, whether we're just doing it for ourselves, videoing something for our family, you know, every time we jump on a Zoom call, we're making media, arguably, right? But the direct way in which media is actually shaping our lives and shaping narratives can be seen literally in the things that have sparked these protests, things that would have been hidden if people had not captured them with the media in their hands. And it kind of brings us back to that central point about controlling the narrative. Tanisha, I want to ask you, you know, especially in this world where media creation is like breathing, especially to younger generations, what are some of the things that encourage you, you know, make you feel hopeful about the direction in which things are turning? And what are some of the things that still frustrate you?
I'm really hopeful with the way we are able to be broader with the fact that we can get, you know, say at Arkansas PBS, we can get user-generated content, right? So I can't necessarily be all over the state of Arkansas or, you know, all over, even from my little hometown. You know, there can be someone there who could send me something now, and I don't have to take a camera down there to get it. They can send it to me and I can go, oh, this is great for this program or that program or the other. Oh, we need to put this on social media. Oh, we can do that. So I'm very encouraged by that. You know, technology is amazing. It's not necessarily my thing. I'm gonna, you know, fully confess to that. I still write on a piece of paper, and a lot of times, you know, go back but I recognize how important it is, and in our young people's hands, that's what they use. So I know in order to connect, I have to be able to make sure that I can do that. So I'm really encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by their level of speaking up and speaking out. Now, they don't necessarily, you know, they're young. They don't necessarily always make the right decisions in what they're putting out and how they're putting it out for a few reasons. But I'm very encouraged by the way that they aren't afraid of it. Because I was telling someone not too long ago about the generations, and like for me coming through, it was like, you just need to get a seat at the table. We're not saying you're going to be able to be at the front, the head of the table yet, but you've got to get us in the room. We've got you to this point, and now you've got to get in there. So, and so sometimes, getting in that room, and now I'm going, okay, but they're like, we're ready to be at the front of the room. They're not ready they're like, we're ready to take it to the next step. So that is really encouraging to me. One of the things that is a little bit discouraging is that, you do still need some time to grow, and you need some time for it to marinate, and you need a little bit of wisdom, and you need some guidance from, the folks who have gotten into the room. You need some guidance on what happens when you get to the front of that room. And I think sometimes there's a misstep in what we're talking about with mentoring and with bringing it forward and with that sort of thing. I know a lot of people know that, I produced the Dreamland documentary that came out a few years ago. And one of the things about it was that when the protests started happening in Arkansas, and they were on 6:30, so many people were like, all of a sudden, why 6:30? What does 6:30 matter? And I'm going, oh, come on.
Yes.
We've got to connect the history, and that's where it was supposed to be. That's where it all happened. I'm like, come on, this was an African-American area, an African-American neighborhood. I'm like, come on, connect the dots. Nobody in the news media didn't do it.
Yeah.
But then I found out a few weeks later that some people who had kind of seen the film were like putting it out on their social media. They were like, you should go back and watch this. You should go back and check it out. And that's not just for my content, but we've got to do that other work. And we've got to know that you're going to have people who are going to be your marchers and your folks that are out there all the time. But you've got to have somebody who's in that courtroom. You've got to have somebody who's going to be able to write that story. You've got to have some of those connections and those bases so that you can spread out, so that you can keep getting that message across. So everybody has a role to play, and we got to keep connecting, and the history and all that. So it discourages me a little bit that, we get ready and we get excited, but then we don't know how to sustain what we're putting out there.
You mentioned 6:30, and of course I'm not from Arkansas, but I've been to Arkansas, and I'm familiar with 6:30 and a little bit of the history. But it sort of underscores to me another thing about symbolism that people have kind of come into late in our learning, if you will, because of media, right? The sudden remembrance, if you will, the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? That came about because of Watchmen, and the realization that there was such a thing as Black Wall Street, that there was this horrific thing that occurred, this massacre that occurred. If it wasn't for pop culture, if it wasn't for media, if it wasn't for storytelling to bring that history forward, we wouldn't know the symbolism behind these things. We wouldn't recognize that there was this period of history, this place in time, this place in our nation where this was possible. And so your documentary feels carries that same sort of responsibility on its shoulders, if you will. I want to bring that to Corrigan, you and also Kwami and Clarice to talk a little bit about this. So Tanisha mentioned, the complicated role of mentorship, if you will, as we actually look forward now and are trying to build a future, right, for both ourselves and for the next generation. What are some of the things that you see as the biggest challenges that we face? But also, what are some of the things that make you excited? Excited about this industry, excited about this moment. I know it's kind of a dark time right now, but there must be things that feel like they are pointing the way to a better future. And it would be great for you guys to share some of those thoughts.
Oh, well, for me, I think of the saying that Taylor, Essence Magazine, I can't think of her first name right now. Susan Taylor
Yeah.
had a saying called, and she used to say, to carry your own head. And essentially it meant to think for yourself. And I think the issues that I see, that I hope that our young people get out of storytelling, using their voices, is to carry their own head, is to think for themselves and not to get on this. We were talking last night. I was on a Zoom last night, and we were dissecting this Cuties, this Netflix film.
Oh yeah.
And part of what we were talking about was bandwagon and call out culture and things like that. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I think the generations, instead of thinking about it and dissecting it and also kind of taking a step back in history to try to figure some things out, that that the issues are, they are just kind of clicking together and thinking about what somebody else is saying and going forward with that instead of thinking for themselves or carrying their own head. So for me, I think it's very important that they continue to do that, or they not do that, but continue, but to try and forge their own thought processes and their own opinions on things. I'm hopeful as far as the future in our generations, younger generation is concerned. I'm hopeful because I trust them. I trust that they, like Tanisha was saying, they're very bold. They want more, and they're willing to be there to get it. So I'm hopeful in that way.
Corrigan, I'm going to let you tie things up here because, unfortunately, we're going to have to end a little early. I have another panel I'm actually moderating, but this one has been a delight, and I genuinely thank each of you for both time and just the ideas, the thinking, the leadership you are sharing with us, and Corrigan, you for organizing all of this. So would love to hear your thoughts about the future and what you think it holds and what hopefully makes you feel good about it.
Yeah, so I feel like what makes me feel good is that I know that this right here is possible. This right here, honestly, has been in the works for 2 years. And it's more so, it just get like, once you get something done, you just feel like, okay, now that I got it done, I know how to work it out. I know how to move forward. I know what I've learned. I know what I messed up on. So overall, I'm just looking forward to prayerfully and honestly to receive more support from those who are from the industry, and to hopefully share stories like this that may not be as attractive as others, but it holds a lot of meaning, and it can be very uplifting and knowledgeable, and it can really just help us all just push forward. And I just hope that as I continue to push forward with this, and as my team and supporters, and Jeff, I would love to even work with you more in the future as well, to just keep moving forward and to uplift people of color. Like our voices do matter, our stories do matter, and the more we put that out, the more our people enhance, the more our people are becoming true of themselves, and don't have to settle for anything less. So I'm truly thankful for all of you for attending. Jeff, I thank you for coming on. Time you came, and it was a really good asset, and I thank everybody else for joining today as well, and the festival, and I just hope you all were able to receive something from this today, and please reach out to us, let us know what you like, didn't like, and we can just continue to grow and continue to move forward.
Thank you so much. I just want to uplift one comment here by Ahmadi Israel, which I think really kind of puts a cap on this conversation and hopefully the festival itself. We must control our narrative if we want to push our story, history forward with our truths. That is so true. And again, thank you all for doing a little bit of a way to make that happen.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
All right.
Have a great evening, guys.
Oh, you too. See ya.
See ya.